announcements in the press, after which the technology mysteriously disappears somewhere, and only occasionally reliable information is received about how this happens, how these emerging technologies are being closed off. And it happens this way. A phone call. Young men appear, not always in black, sometimes in gray suits, always well-dressed, very polite, and with very serious facial expressions. After that, inventors or developers are made offers which, as a rule, they cannot refuse. In really rare cases, when the inventor is very lucky, they receive a more or less substantial sum, approximately $1 million, deposited into their account. These are the rarest cases. In most cases, the offers are not as tempting and much less pleasant. These are threats to their family, threats to the person themselves, or simply a demand to sign some documents, after which the development is taken away for them forever, and they remain forever silent. I will not list all these names because the list, believe me, is very long. I even received some confidential messages that by talking about these technologies, Andrei, you are actually risking a lot. This was said by people directly involved in these very secret services.
We observe the halt of progress, not only in science, but also in art. In the second half of the 20th century, modern people stopped dreaming about space flights, visiting other worlds, time travel, breakthrough discoveries, and a happy future of humanity in a society of harmony and creation. Nowadays, mass culture mainly operates with negative and destructive plots, programming us for the outcome the world authorities expect. What do you think they expect, and why do they act this way? But it doesn't end with mass culture. In the consumerist format, all means are involved: viruses, wars, hunger. It's a working scheme after the implementation of which not only people's lives are destroyed, but also the technologies that give life and freedom.
It did stop them, of course. Many scientific developments were definitely halted. This is 100%. In particular, everything. And not only could, but they actually did vanish. Why? Who's an engineer? Who's an inventor? It's either an individual or a group of 2 or 3 people, and often only one of them really knows something. When millions of boys are called up to the army and they die, there are not just human bodies lying on the battlefield. Let's ponder. There are brilliant discoveries, fundamental scientific inventions. There are absolutely amazing philosophical treatises and artistic works that no one will write or create anymore. And the First World War led to the death of a huge number of young men. I understand that feminists will bark at me for these words, but it's precisely young men who are the gene pool of the future humanity. While middle-aged and elderly men are those who make breakthroughs possible, it takes a long time to bring up an inventor as scientist. Remember an amazing episode in Ephrem's Starships where an old scientist discovers a tank in which his disciple died and extracts a folder containing unique, amazing calculations and drawings. The young man took them to the front line and never returned. It's a fairy tale, a science fiction, a work of art. Yet, there is a reality behind such works. A perished inventor is not a fairy tale. And just not on the front line. They don't have any money to pay him. We're doing an important job. We're defeating the enemy, while you asking for money for some trivial things. Look at you. Go sweep the streets, help the defenders of the homeland. And the person dies of hunger, or stops his interesting and significant research. This happens at every step of any war. Moreover, the wars of the past were not waged with such intensity and cruelty. They did not involve so many people, but started from the Franco-Prussian War, and especially the First World War, they did involve them. Hundreds of thousands and millions of young men, a sharp decline in the economy, the entire economy, with all the ensuing consequences.
And all this happens due to our tacit consent. In addition to wars, progress is also hindered by our unwillingness to learn new things. Learned helplessness syndrome, omniscience, laziness, greed, slave psychology and thinking, all these are the reasons why human beings do not develop but degrade in the consumerist format of society. As we can see, evil exists within each of us. We shift responsibility onto the government, blame politicians and everyone we can. Yet, we ourselves are not interested in developing the technologies that could set us free. As the saying goes, in the search for enemies, the main thing is not to stumble upon ourselves. Because each of us has mindsets that stop us and prevent us from moving forward in our development. It's quite simple. The responsibility lies with each of us, and our future doesn't depend on some authorities. Friends won't save us, because friends are we. And it is only up to us to determine what our future will be like.
Born against your will in a world of death, in deceitful dreams. Who are you, a fledgling trapped in a cage, enduring so much sorrows and tears? For whom do you live and what do you breathe? How many precious years and moments have you sold yourself into boundaries do you hear? For those who hold the carrot and the whip, look at yourself, what do you see? Either what you once dreamed earth, or human demanding, hustle him not, squander your potential. Have the sweetness of freedom be forgotten, lost in web of cheap pretenses? Have your heart learned to love in the emptiness of endless dreams? Start the chains of the cynical society to remember who you are, what your purpose is. While it's a glimmer of dignity within you, awaken so the hell doesn't dwell in you. Everyone feels that something not right when stuck in the hellish wheel. With our own hands we created it, that we could have lived in paradise. Having lost our humanity, we lost ourselves, and for the last 6,000 years we've been destroying, suffering, losing our souls, hiding under the darkness of ignorance. Born against your will in a world of death, deceitful dreams. Are you a fledgling trapped in a cage, enduring so much sorrows and tears? Or have we created good and useful things for ourselves, for king, for children, for the careless murder of fellow human beings? Technologies now serve at the instant, or have we erased the lives long ago, giving both light and comfort? Is this why it concealed and tossed to the dogs, while we're left with the bare bones? We fight for the light favors, ready to devour each other. Yet as long as conscience doesn't fall silent within, we can peacefully sleep. Our human don't extinguish the spark of his soul, preserve, multiply the gifts. Hasten to warm out the wound's love, illuminate planet Earth with it. Let the unity of hearts resonate, let goodness beget more goodness. By casting away the frown of suffering, together we'll tame the core of the planet. So maybe significant for now, amidst the infinity of star systems. When untied we already ain't but separate, we see age to exist. Build unified and free world, reach the boundaries of the universe. Invite the united to faster friendship of our planet, where no green faces well. Without lies, evil, cruelty, inequality, knowledge and love must be great in the speed of light, and happiness will spark within everyone. Our replicators will receive all we need for our bodies. In our world, dictators will see age to exist. The fate of slaves will become a thing of the past. Truth will become our law, and God's law will be our reward. And we shall never forget who you are. If you human are ready, 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 hey.
This is our present. Now imagine what our future will be like when progressive technologies start to integrate into everyday life. In the future, new capabilities inherent in humans will be continuously discovered. Imagine being able to teleport to any point in the universe. And will not only possess telekinesis, but also the power of thought in all its manifestations. Imagine a world where free energy won't be something supernatural and unreal. Even now, some inventors have working fuel-free generators. In the future, these generators will not only be in every factory, but also in every home and every vehicle.
One of the most frequently asked questions I get is, Andrei, tell me, where are these fuel-free technologies? How many are there? Why don't they pave their own way? After all, once they appear on the horizon, of course, businesses will immediately grab hold of them. Well, you see, friends, the number of these technologies, according to Patrick Kelly's compendium, is approximately 160 plus. It's important to consider that Kelly's compendium covers a period of about 20 years. This is the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. It means it's far from being complete. Moreover, these technologies can be divided into groups: the use of centrifugal forces, the use of electricity, magnetic and gravitational energy. Well, whatever you want. In fact, it's quite challenging to even structure them due to their significant diversity. And all this diversity appeared not over a very long period of time. Most of them emerged in the second half of the 20th century, but their fate is more or less the same.
First of all these devices are characterized by, not just energy, not just motion. There is actually a whole complex of technologies, including in medicine, in material science and engineering. When you can change materials. Years ago, when we all lived in the Soviet Union, significant work was done in Ukraine. To be more precise, in Lviv, to research new methods in metallurgy, changing the properties of metals under the influence of torsion field generators. There were remarkable achievements. For instance, they melted metal and, in the molten state, it was exposed to a torsion generator for several minutes. The structure of the metal changed. And all of this was confirmed in many places. And now it is confirmed everywhere in Russia. There are all the documents, there is everything. Nevertheless, the technologies aren't being implemented. Good quality metal can be produced with relatively low costs, but it all is at the standstill for the same reasons why we do not yet have new sources of energy, why we do not develop new types of transportation that can fly in space without a rocket engine. There are already such devices. And the fact that we constantly see several unidentified flying objects every day in all countries is not surprising. Apparently, there are conscious beings that have this knowledge and have been using it for a long time, while some bad guys simply don't let us implement it on Earth. After all, we depend heavily on energy. Here in Russia, energy prices are growing very fast, and the same is happening worldwide. How can an ordinary person pay for all these energy resources? They have to work a lot. That's why, of course, this will make people free. And a free person will have more opportunities for a normal life, for using their time for more useful things, such as leisure, tourism, providing themselves and their family with necessary resources. If people start to do real work, that is, stop making money, and develop science and knowledge already in the post-technological stage of development, then their life will become beautiful. Because a lot can be changed then. Now, of course, it is difficult to say, but basically, then the human will be able to do everything. Because, well, what the existence outside of metric systems is, what happens there and what will be, we do not know yet. I mean, a human there will become, you could say, omnipotent, and will be able to do almost everything. Bosses and owners will be eliminated. People will live as a collective and solve different problems to provide for daily life and for the further development of the mind, in search of further development of human civilization and its intelligence. While the material part will be fully provided, and that's why the development will go in new, very interesting directions. In other words, we will get rid of what people strive for today, only money, while interests and search will be much more ambitious, exciting, and effective. Naturally, when the human is born, he is looking for something to do, he is thinking, and if his material needs are met, so to speak, then he is engaged only in what is closest to him, what is interesting to him.
Well, you know, first and foremost, we will get freedom from need. We will have opportunities for the development of each and every one of us, and we will be free from the most powerful lever of control and coercion, which is the manipulation of scarce energy resources. With energy freedom, we will simply begin a new life. Opportunities will open up, not only for economic prosperity, but in particular for the conquest of the solar system. And these opportunities, these technologies already exist today. I'll tell you even more. There are already several companies that have brought their devices to the level of commercial use and are just waiting for the opportunity to produce clean electricity without any harmful emissions, radiation, and completely fuel-free. Hundreds, even terawatts. Moreover, there are technologies that allow us to provide each and every household with a compact source of electricity that can fit, roughly speaking, into your socket. And lastly, there are technologies that will simply allow us to easily fly to Mars in a week. Not just one way, like Elon Musk, but to have a round trip.
At the current stage of development, humanity hasn't yet freed itself from its animal legacy. As long as we wage wars and produce weapons of ever-increasing destructive power, deep knowledge about alternative forms of energy is unlikely to be made available to us. And this is probably for our good. We don't give a dangerous tool to our child until they grow up and become conscious enough to use it for their benefit and without harming themselves. In a sense, the human race are still unconscious children, and demiurgic forces protect us from causing irreversible harm to ourselves and the planet. Before working with such powerful and potentially dangerous energies, we must at least learn to live in peace with each other.
Once again, science has picked up tremendous speed. Just a little more, and it will cross the red lines that were drawn for it 100 years ago. Right now, the same story that halted progress in the early 20th century is repeating itself in a well-established pattern. Epidemic, war, famine. Today, few people consider these three phenomena as a unified and most effective weapon used by those who seek total power. This triad has appeared throughout history since ancient times. Today, it is still used to break people's will, impose values that are foreign to them, destroy entire nations, and gain the ability to manipulate millions of people.
639 AD. The Prophet never led conquering wars. However, right after his departure, the first caliphs, Abu Bakr and Umar, started using Islam to create an empire. Abu Bakr and Umar unleashed murderous wars of conquest. True Muslims, faithful to the Prophet Muhammad, those who dedicated their lives to serving Allah, were deeply dissatisfied with such actions of the new caliphs. And, at that time, there was a widespread outbreak of plague. It started in the district of Amwas, near Jerusalem, and then spread throughout Palestine and Syria. In the military camp of the small town of Amwas, by the year 639, only 4,000 Muslim warriors remained out of 24,000. Almost all the top army commanders who knew the Quran and fought alongside the Prophet himself perished. The plague wiped out everyone who carried the idea and the knowledge. This allowed Umar, who betrayed the Prophet's commandments, to put the people he needed at the head of the army. Immediately after the plague, an artificially created famine began. Due to the drought, there was a real problem with the harvest, but Umar prohibited making reserves and personally distributed the food brought by the caravans. He clearly understood what he was doing, using starvation to suppress people after the war, making them think more about a piece of bread rather than the truth. Umar destroyed most of the people who could make any resistance and break the rest. It was an ideological act. Umar and his associates changed the worldview of a huge number of people. The consequences of this we still see to this day. 1918 AD. During the First World War, an epidemic of a mysterious flu called Spanish flu claimed the lives of about 100 million people. This exceeded the losses in the First and Second World Wars. 2 to 3 years later, after reaping its harvest, the Spanish flu disappeared, and the source of the flu was never found. However, there is no doubt that the First World War played a significant role in the spread and evolution of the virus. Doctors know very well that during military actions, more soldiers die from diseases than on the battlefield. This is because not only war, but also the movement of troops and civilian populations contribute to the spread of epidemics. And then, mass starvation followed. 2020 AD. 100 years after the deadliest flu epidemic in history, the Spanish flu, humanity once again faced a high-tension virus threat. On March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization declared the beginning of a global pandemic caused by a new strain of coronavirus, or COVID-19. By the most modest estimates of the WHO since the onset of the coronavirus attack, the disease has claimed the lives of at least 20 million people worldwide. Millions have suffered and continue to suffer from post-COVID syndrome and exacerbations of chronic diseases triggered by COVID. Right now, through mass media, humanity is being deliberately prepared for an upcoming famine.
The results of using the ominous triad of epidemic, war, and famine have always been the same: impoverishment, mass casualties, people's fear for their lives, and subservience of humanity to a few individuals. Currently, we are witnessing the unfolding of the second phase of this scheme in modern realities. When it's over, the restrictions will be escalated to a new high-tech level. Some of you might say, well, we've been through this before, we'll go over it again. The problem in this whole story is that there is no time left for humanity on planet Earth to implement the epidemic, war, famine triad once more. This will be our final point. Climate change will mark the end. In order to ascend to the next stage of development, humanity must become free. Only the liberated science of a united humanity can stop the cataclysms. It's up to each of us now. We have the way out.
The creative society, this model, allows humanity to evolve in its development, both technologically and spiritually. The creative society, it's a format that awakens faith in oneself among people, ensures safety for all, provides equality, justice, as well as a dignified future for every individual on our planet and for human civilization as a whole.
For several years, we have been informing about the creative society. The most frequent question we hear is, what will my life be like in the creative society? Friends, it's time to answer this question that concerns all of us. Make yourselves comfortable. We invite you to a wonderful world where the most valuable thing is human life. Your life. Living conditions, everyday life. Already in the transition period from the consumerist format of society to the creative one, each person will immediately be provided with accommodation of at least 60 square meters for a comfortable life. If you have a family of 5, you will live in a house or apartment of 300 square meters. This housing will be your property. It will not be subject to taxes and utility bills. As your family grows, your living space will expand. A consumer paradise will be created. The availability of free time, money, and a variety of quality goods and accessible products. And this is already in the transition period from a consumerist format to the creative society. Financial freedom. People will become financially independent starting from their birth. From the first day of the transition period to the creative society, all mortgages and loans will be written off. No more inflation. Prices for the same product or services will be the same all over the world. No more taxes on small and medium-sized businesses. No more taxes on individuals. You will receive a universal basic income of $10,000 every month. There will be no need to work in order to have a roof over your head and feed your family. In the creative society, you will always have confidence in your future. Do you want more money? There will be an opportunity to work doing what you love to do. Only 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. You will have a vacation at least 2 months a year. Do you want to work more because you get a buzz out of doing your job benefiting society? Go for it. You are always free to choose. All hard, dangerous, harmful, and monotonous work will be done by robots and automated systems. A human is not a slave to toil from morning till night for a penny. You will have time for yourself. You will be able to do things you really care about. Spend time with people you love. Develop yourself. Be creative. And travel to any part of the world without visas or restrictions. In the creative society, every day of your life brings only joy and pleasure. Environment. Production will be waste-free and completely environmentally friendly. Pesticides and chemicals will no longer be needed to grow products. Only tasty, healthy, and varied foods will always be on your table. You will be able to enjoy clean, fresh air wherever you go. You will be able to drink crystal clear water saturated with good microelements and minerals. In the creative society, we will restore the ecosystem of the planet, and we will be able to admire the purity of oceans and the beauty of pristine forests. The creative society is a world of harmony and beauty. Healthcare. Perfect health of every person is one of the priorities of the creative society. From the very beginning of the transition period, medical care will be free for everyone. Doctors will be paid for healthy patients. A patient will no longer be seen as a profitable client. Each medical center will be equipped with artificial intelligence that will incorporate the experience of all the best doctors in the world throughout history. The very approach in healthcare will change. It will become 90% preventative. And all this right away in the transition period. Now, in the creative society, new technologies will allow humanity to never get sick. Everyone will have an opportunity to significantly increase their lifespan. To date, these technologies are already being developed, but the consumerist format makes them inaccessible for us. A simple device installed in the shower cubicle will scan your body and will adjust your appearance according to your wishes. In the creative society, you'll be really healthy, completely free of charge. Education. You deserve a decent, high quality, and free education. Do you like to study? In the creative society, you can get as many degrees as you want. And you won't have to worry about earning a living because you'll have a universal basic income. From the first days of the transition period to the creative society, you can easily acquire a new profession if you wish to. Artificial intelligence will create an adaptive educational program for you according to your peculiarities. You can study anywhere in the world and at a time that suits you. The creative society is a world of knowledgeable and versatile personalities. Freedom. People will decide for themselves what rules and laws to live by and implement their decisions through voting on a unified platform. The highest value is human life. Everything will be built around the fundamental basis. The world's media will no longer be in private hands, but will belong to society as a whole. This means that they will no longer be able to manipulate public opinion for the profit of a few. The media will truthfully and holistically inform, educate, and inspire people. Safety. Already, in the transition period from the consumerist format to the creative society, the fate of people will no longer depend on the decisions made by a few individuals and on what those in power will agree among themselves. Society will create conditions in which wars, murder, theft, slavery, human trafficking, and drug trade will be impossible. Crime will completely disappear. The latest technologies will be implemented everywhere, which will help the Unified Emergency Service to work proactively to prevent accidents and crimes. You can easily let your child go to school or outside being completely sure about his safety. You'll be safe and secure at all times of day and night while returning home in the evening, going for a walk in the park, or going to a concert. The main danger, the threat of a global climate catastrophe, will be solved. Humanity will never again be threatened by climate disasters and wars. In the creative society, you and your family will be safe anywhere in the world. You will get all this starting from the first days of the transition period. And already, in the creative society, thanks to a replicator technology, you will be able to get everything you need. All kinds of food, clothes, household items, and much more. As fantastic as it may sound, most of the technologies we're talking about already exist. It's just that it's impossible to use them in a consumerist format. Beginning with the transition period, science and technology will be aimed at improving the quality of human life. Life must bring only joy and pleasure. The whole absurdity is that, despite having all the possibilities to live in the creative society already now, we continue to maintain the consumerist format. We can build the creative society peacefully, without struggle or confrontation, in the shortest possible time. There will be no more revolutions, except scientific and technological ones, which will be a permanent and natural phenomenon in the creative society. Tell your family, friends, neighbors, and acquaintances about this perspective. Share how beneficial and cool the creative society is for them. You and I are living in an amazing time, when within a short time we can move from the slave system of the consumerist format to the free and safe world of the creative society. Everything depends on you. If you want such a life, support the creative society and tell everyone about it.